the concept that we're covering here, you'll hear me in the audio. I promise you'll see my face in a minute. Don't worry, I have not died. I will return. Is that there's really this thing about two levels of kind of, alerting is such a general idea, but sort of seeing that there is some kind of problem, right? Seeing that we have some pattern that we're observing. The first is, hey, wake me up about this. And a lot of those really they are going to be things that you have pre-configured, right? The classic is something that is a very overall number about response time. So like a synthetics value that's like, hey, you have something going and pinging your whole service and waiting for a response. And so it's always going to be that is something that we're going to want to, that's usually something that we have set up is what's going to wake us up. But then there's that second stage, which is, okay, what is happening? What is happening across our whole service?
Yeah, that's right. And, we've kind of got these two detection capabilities at play here. We've got proactive detection, which you can think of as, hey, I want to tell you the things I care about, and you handle like finding the anomalies in the telemetry.
And then we're showing video again.
Hey, excellent. By the way, we're back on video.
We're back on video. Sorry, you started talking. I was like, whoop, time to get onto the video.
Cool. And then there's the other stuff, which is those alerts. Like that's the contractual agreement that you make with your observability system. Say like, hey, I want you to interrupt me when these things happen.
Yeah.
And so we think of proactive detection as kind of in this filling this interesting gap in monitoring and alerting, where I need to get, regardless of the quality of the alerts that have been configured. And I mean, I think everybody can agree that it's challenging to create and maintain high quality alerts as your complex system changes over time.
Yeah.
And proactive detection kind of normalizes that a bit, right? Like you don't need to set up the sensitivity and the thresholds and all that. And so you get a feed of what the AI system sees as anomalies, and it removes some of the variability of like the alert quality between your teams. And then you can just get a sense of like another lens to look at the health of your system to see what's going on from that AI engine perspective.
Yeah, I love that. I want to just, everyone knows my personal story with New Relic, of course, because I have hundreds of stalkers. But, I actually got my start in the tech industry at New Relic way back in the day, back in the olden days of 2015.
That's awesome.
And, when I was doing tech support for New Relic, this question would come in all the time, which was, someone would say, hey, why didn't we get an alert? And I would say, well, because you didn't configure an alert on that service. And someone would say, well, but the throughput on this backend Java server went from 1 request an hour to 2,000 requests a minute. And also the memory on that server, of course, dropped to nothing, went up to 99% usage. So you had all the data. Why didn't you warn us, right, that there was a problem? And of course, I'm, going to describe how we could set up alerts for next time about that. But at the time, this was just kind of science fiction. Was like, surely because we have all the data, wouldn't we just kind of notice, right? And I mean, often it's an important customer, they'd be like, maybe we should, we have somebody just our job to sort of look at everything all the time. And so say, that one looks wrong. But we are now entering that world as being a real system, right? And of course, we don't want it just alerting us about every single thing, but it is possible to say, hey, when something looks off enough, we at least want to write it down on the sticky note and say like, hey, this is something that's going on at this time. All right, so let's get into it. Let's go take a look at it in action, and if possible, let's zoom in and enhance a little bit because we're a little tiny. We're a little tiny.
Sure, I can go a little bit bigger here.
Give me a command plus.
Yeah. All right, is that good? Are we?
Let's go one more.
One more
for the people in the back.
Feeling it. At least the billboard numbers are readable. We're there on that, so that's better.
Okay.
A little better. So there will be a blog version of this. If you're missing some of the text, I promise we'll share the 4K version on the blog next week. So if you wished you could have read one of these data labels, I promise we'll get it up. But let's dive into it.
Great. So I'm here talking to you about a capability that I've been working with one of our teams, the correlation services team, on, called Correlation Assistant. And before I kind of dig into that capability, I do want to kind of zoom back a little bit, give you a little bit of context of where this fits into New Relic's product suite. So you can tell we're in alerts and AI, so it's related to that. And what is correlation? So you can see I'm in this incident intelligence area. This is our kind of next gen incident response product suite. So you can think of like the kind of standard, classic alerts lifecycle. Like something happens, I get notified about it. Well, as systems get more complex, as teams get more complex, and the kind of corporate topology between all of this, so like how do you know who's working on what and whose system is dependent on what? How do you reason about that when you're on call? And so incident intelligence goal is to solve that problem for on-call folks so that they can feel confident about fixing their complex system in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Yeah, and so often when we're dealing with an incident, we don't want to always focus on this. A lot of this is, maybe just kind of seeing how things are doing. And you mentioned like kind of keeping an eye on it through the day and saying, hey, we have a pattern that we noticed maybe before we have a serious problem. But there's also the issue of how incidents spread, how they spread to other teams. And very often that's sort of what I think about, right? It's like waking up a single human, we don't want to do it all the time, but it can happen, right? But one of the big strengths of New Relic, hopefully, is that in the sort of classical use, it helps control the spread of who else has to come and take a look at this, right? The oldest one that I know of is, right, by doing front end and back end monitoring, right? If you can see, hey, our front end response time is totally constant throughout here, and it's the back end whose response time is climbing, then you don't have to, ping anybody, hopefully on the front end team to say, hey, some users report that this, checkout is slow or whatever else. You can say, oh, well, I at least now about half of the engineers don't have to get bugged with this, right? So that kind of scoping, like during, to keep it from like just spreading out now, it feels so major to me about our like quality of lives as engineers.
Oh, absolutely. And there's also like two sides to that coin. And in some cases, you have dependencies that you want to manage, and you can prevent folks from needing to get interrupted because you've got the backend system, that is serving your mobile client. So like, don't worry, the mobile guys, they can't do anything about it. But on the other side, you've got cascading failures that can impact multiple systems, and you want everybody to jump in, understand that, hey, you have a problem and I have a problem, and it's related, it's the same thing, and we're looking at it together, versus getting notified independently of two different kind of like more narrowly scoped symptoms. But like we're in this together as two teams needing to solve this problem together.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I left tech support at New Relic in 2015, and at that time it was only a very tiny subset of really, really big users, tech companies, that had this question of like, we don't know how things are correlated, right? Like, I talk about, front end, back end, the Angular team and the Django team or something, right? Pretty straightforward. Like, oh, you have an error here, it must be this group, right? Or obviously, right, the front end is going to talk to this Django service. But it was a very tiny subset of customers who said, sometimes the front end makes requests and we don't know where those requests go, right? Like someone at the company knows, but just it's not easy to figure out. Now, right, I'm back now at New Relic post microservice revolution. Everybody needs that now. Everybody has teams that are interacting in ways, and this is in large part is a good thing. It's sort of indicative of some other good stuff, but because people are empowered to release these small services, they'll just find like, oh, these are not, I don't know where this request is going. And so they really do. They need something like the correlation assistant to say, hey, look, these things that maybe you're not even aware have a dependency on each other, they're failing together.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about correlation, just so folks are following along. Correlation, the correct but maybe a little fancy word for grouping events together.
Mm-hmm.
Things that if you as a system expert were to see two alerts and you're looking at them, you're like, would I want these things grouped together? Are they related? In this area of time and where it's coming from my system, would I put these two things together? Should I get just one notification that tells me that, hey, these two things are happening? And if yes, then you want to encode that into your system to do that into the future. So we've got a set of correlation capabilities that in incident intelligence, and you can bring in your alerts from New Relic alerts, also from third-party systems, anything else. So, if you go into our sources page, I'm going to be doing a little bit of pitch of incident intelligence here, but just to paint the picture, you can bring in alerts from anywhere, centralize them, and then we can help you group those together to reduce noise and increase context. And we do that with our decision engine. And this allows you to encode logic as a system expert, so that in the future, when alerts come in, we look at 2 alerts, like should they be grouped together? And we do this at high volume in very flexible ways. So you can do that today, and you've been able to do that for the last year, actually. You can add decisions here. Anybody who has access to incident intelligence, definitely go check this out. This is what I would call advanced mode. Totally open, totally transparent system for correlating your alerts. And so you can do some very powerful things in filtering, contextual correlation, and sneak peek. There's some fun things coming around topology-based correlation, but we won't get into that this week. Maybe in the next stream.
Teaser for later.
For later.
It's the black hand picking up the black gloved hand picking up the sword from the ashes. Like, oh boy, well, what's gonna happen with topology?
Yes, and so you can build those rules today. We also pore over your data continuously, looking for patterns in your alerting data. And when we find those patterns, we actually will generate one of those decisions and push them into this area called suggested decisions. I don't have any in the Demotron environment today. So we'll create those for you, and then you can choose to enable them. And then those future correlations of those patterns we found will take place for you. And we found that working with our customers, we're missing kind of one other angle for creating these decisions, which was something happened. I have an idea of what I want to correlate. It didn't correlate, but I want to start with that data. These 2 things that I want to correlate in the future, and I want you to tell me how I can just build some logic and get that decision created super quickly, so that in the future I can reduce that noise and increase context. And so that's correlation assistant that I'm talking about. So for folks wanting to get started with this right away, here's how you do that. You jump into alerts and AI, and then with an overview, you go straight to your incident tab. And these are all the symptoms of the alerts coming in from all your systems. And you got this new checkbox here, and you can choose a number of incidents and then just say correlate incidents. And so I've got one here for response time selected.
Now, this is where we can bring in events like from other sources, right? Like I noticed we had a list of possible.
Yes, exactly. So you can see this source here, New Relic, that column, and we're actually using PagerDuty as a source as well in this environment. So you can think of that as like a very high leverage way to get your data into incident intelligence super quickly. PagerDuty, great product, tons of integration. So if you're already a PagerDuty customer and you've got it hooked into all your alerting engines, we can actually get a real-time feed of those alerts and bring those in and have them correlated and pushed back into PagerDuty to reduce noise.
And so that's also a place where we could get ServiceNow as a source, right, for some of these incoming incidents. Hey, look, callbacks. I did it. We got back to ServiceNow.
I know Shahar. Was talking about ServiceNow. I think on the last one. Exactly.
And it is available as an event source to bring in incidents, and also just not that that's too germane to this, but also like we can propagate back the other way too. So you can, if you like go and resolve the incident here, it will also resolve back in ServiceNow, which is cool.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of interesting work with ServiceNow, so that we can partner with them as that incident response manager for some.
Again, a ton of ways to sort of bring in. They have their own big set of integrations. So obviously, it's like, this is mainly for people who like Mr. Mahajan, who are already bringing in a bunch of stuff to ServiceNow.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so I'm going to click correlate incidents here. This will bring up a pane. And what we're doing is just a quick analysis of anything that those selected incidents have in common. same key, same value, and a quick list to give you a sense of what attributes would be good to add to your decision. We've also added a frequency column here. And what we've done kind of in the moment that I click correlate instance, we did a quick look at the last 30 days of your data and the attributes and values that are present to give you a sense of like how unique or non-unique these attribute values are. And the guide, what's nice about that, I'll give you an example. The things that are going to be very high in the list or high on the list, but low frequency may not be the best attributes to use because you won't get a lot of correlation out of it. Scrolling down to the bottom, you see like, oh, things with, 100%, well, categories is always present with the same value on all events. So if I chose that, I'd probably over correlate. So this kind of gives you a little bit of guidance on, what attributes would be good to start with.
Yeah, this is, one of the use cases that always pops up to me is like, this tool is very good for, that was always so much an edge case before, is like a noisy customer. Like if you're doing like a SaaS product, it's really true. Very often sort of the most important thing might be their like organization ID, right? Not customer ID because they all have separate logins, but the organization that they represent. Way back in the day, I was working for an e-learning company, and most of the little classrooms, the virtual classrooms, had 10 or 20 or 30 kids. But we had a couple of customers where all of their classrooms had 5,000 kids in them because it was like the whole district was using it at the same time. And so their experience of the site was very different than sort of the most, and it was terrible because, since that was one classroom out of thousands or millions, our average performance looked great. Our mean performance looked great, but those same customers who had, 5,000 kids in a class were also by far, they were like 80% of our revenue at the company. So, we were giving the worst experience to our best and most important customers. And it was very hard to see unless you said, hey, can we go by org ID and see this behavior? This was way back in the day. We really didn't have the tools to do that.
Yeah. So similarly, we breaking down the data, kind of helping you understand your data at a deeper level, its frequency. You can even go in a little bit deeper. Let's see, that's maybe not a good example because everything is 100% on there. Let's see, deployment name. I think team was a good one. Yeah. So team. So of the, what was it? 13% of the time, New Relic tag team is present. And then this is kind of the breakdown. Okay, so that makes sense. And so really all you're doing is picking these attributes here. I want to make sure things that have the same team and same deployment name. And let's see, is there anything else? You can see I'm picking a lot of things in the tag area. Highly recommend that everybody, tag their entities, tag their data, and those are going to become more and more valuable in New Relic One and other parts of the system. And in this case, we've got a couple of really high value, correlation attributes, and then you can simulate, because this is going to affect the groupings of your alerts going forward. What we're doing here is looking over the last 7 days. We've inspected, 2,000 alerts, and 258 or 13% of that data we would actually correlate. And so that would be real noise reduction that you would get by creating this correlation decision.
I really, really like that. I'm gonna grab a screenshot of that for the blog, and because I am colossally lazy, I'll like screenshot it from Twitch. Oh, so lazy. Oh, it's so great. But yeah, that's really good. I really, really like that. It just feels like, you really could, empower yourself to get stuff that's a lot cleaner as far as not getting alerts that just didn't really affect, that many people's performance.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I got 2 more things I'll highlight, and then I can turn it over to maybe questions or Brian. First thing is, we found 258 items that we would correlate. Seeing those example pairs here, we've got about 20 we show you. You can actually click on these, and what we'll do is go even deeper, so you can run that just like last little kind of Q&A. Do I actually want these 2 events to group together in the future? Quick side by side, here's all the things they have in common, kind of highlighted in blue. You can scroll through them. double check that, oh yeah, this is, this is the right environment. This is all, production, same team. Just double check so that we provide that in a nice, easy comparison view.
I love that. I love, like, it's something we've had for a little while for alerts, is like previewing, hey, you're setting up an alert threshold. Here's what would have alerted in the past, right? But so setting up this to say, like, hey, you're saying these things are correlated. This is the sort of events that we would correlate in the future. It's nice.
Yes,
That's
yeah, using our past to improve our future is going to be a very common theme going forward for our group. And all right, last thing, we just added this the other week, similarities. So I just showed you that, hey, we can do, a quick analysis, all the attributes, regardless of what you put on those incident events, what they have in common. Sometimes you get things wrong, different naming conventions, maybe different separators, different casing. So we did a similar attribute analysis for you and kind of presented that. Here's a quick example I found in the test Demotron data. We even highlight the characters that would need to be changed in order to make these exact. So what does that mean? We're using a fun similarity algorithm called the Levenschtein algorithm, and set it with a distance of 3. So that means that can these two values with 3 character changes become equal to each other? Meaning, a change would be like deleting a character, adding a character, or changing a character. And so you can see in some cases, like I've got backend 2, backend 3, maybe, somebody fat fingered it. They're both supposed to be backend 2. And that either tells me I need to go fix my metadata, or this is actually a good correlation opportunity because I want things that are, pretty close in terms of, it's all telco backend on this label name. And when it's similar, so you can see if I add this one, it'll be tag label name is similar to the tag label name between those 2 events. And that can be part of your decision logic going forward.
I really like that. And you can use a regex as well. Like if you know exactly how you want to transform, like that there's uppercase and lowercase versions, and you just always want to ignore case or and connect them. You can use a regex as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the correlation assistance, kind of like the quick way to get a decision, an effective decision created, so you can correlate data and reduce noise. And I showed you that kind of advanced mode. You can always go into kind of that standard decision builder UI, and we've got more algorithms there for comparing attributes, values, entire incidents based on like clustering and all kinds of cool stuff, and everybody's favorite regex. If you want to do some, you got an idea in your head that you want to encode into the system, like it's a super flexible decision engine.
I love it. So I want to ask one more question, and it's much more like zooming back. So
sure,
we're on the beach, but now we're looking at the continent. We're looking at the whole globe, right? But it feels like very often to this day, I'm kind of having pretty primary conversations about AIOps when I sort of just we go to the meetup when we're all standing around the cooler. It's like, oh well, AIOps is going to replace people's jobs or these other things. So it's like that doesn't really calc with sort of what we're actually seeing from the industry, but. I'm curious if outside of, beyond where we are, where we're getting to this point where you can say, hey, we're going to find anomalies in a much more intelligent way. And when you log in and check stuff out, you're going to see that there are these connections. What would you say is like the sort of mid-range future of AIOps? Like what do you think you're going to be talking about in 2022, 2023 about, here's the next big thing of AIOps?
Sure. So one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is just where it makes sense within the industry to actually have the AI when it comes to observability. And I keep coming back to like, everybody, as our systems get more complex, and that trend is not changing. Our systems just get like, the parts are getting smaller, which means there's more of them and there's more connections between them. So that complexity is going up, and we need to build observability platforms that continue to help on-call folks like be effective at responding to failures. And when those failure scenarios are getting more complex, like you need a system and the AI in closer to the data to be able to help those on-call people effectively. So when I think about, FY22, I'm thinking about, observability platforms that where the telemetry is as the place where like true, cause analysis can occur, hypothesis testing, some of these, I really believe that, like the silver bullet root cause analysis is going to be something we're always chasing but never catch. And so you need a system that can actually, like, I know there's a problem. Here's the symptoms involved. Here are the entities involved. So I kind of have an idea of what the picture is, but I need to go interrogate the telemetry, ask questions about it, slice it and dice it, and then kind of fill in the picture more for the responder. So they're like assisted and augmented to determine root cause themselves. Yeah. And so, I'm excited about the fact that, New Relic has all this data across the stack, open telemetry, all this stuff. Like they'll have the telemetry, and we can build on top of that these systems that can, like I say, interrogate it, test hypotheses against it, and then bring those findings to responders in the middle of the night when you've got this really like hairy problem that, is like multiple failure modes at play at the same time.
Love that. Yeah, I jotted it down because I want to kind of mention this blog, not as second quarter of this year, but just it is really a thought that sort of, this is kind of what I see too. Is it's not about, hey, this is all going to become automated in the future, or it's gonna, we're gonna have a system that just stands up the servers as needed and we all get to sleep for 100 years. But it's the clues will get a little better, right? The clues about, hey, when we have a problem and it looks, especially as we sort of know that a problem is confusing and it's not straightforward, the ability to say, hey, give me more clues about what we think is happening here, that is going to keep advancing.
Yeah, we're not looking to, replace people. I don't think, even if we tried, we probably never could. But like our approach is about augmentation and assistance to those system experts, to just give them like more leverage. They can do it, better, faster, stronger.
Yeah, there's this thing Kelsey Hightower said where he said, nobody in ops, very few people in ops these days are configuring email anymore. But strangely, the people who used to spend all their time configuring email and securing email and doing those email service things that we now usually use the SaaS tool for, somehow those people all still seem to be working. And it's because they're doing cooler stuff, right? They're making CI/CD work, or they're making like really cool network shares work, right? And so it's not that we're putting people out of jobs. It's much more about empowering people to do more neater stuff.
Yeah. That's right.
But yeah, Nate, I kept you on way late because I was just so interested in this one. But let's go to our BRB screen and get Brian in here. Unless, Nate, do you have a TikTok that you would like to plug? My TikTok is, of course, serverless mom, everybody, obviously, but same as my Twitch, Twitter, Dev2, GitHub, and everything else. But yeah, do you have other stuff you wanna mention?
Oh boy. So going through the list you asked, Evan, I have a dog, but I don't have like an Instagram for him.
Wow.
I think he deserves it. Yeah. He's a puppy too. So like, it's kind of sad. Like,
You're
I think
depriving me of this content?
Yeah. He is in the dog Slack channel in New Relic, which is amazing if you haven't been there. But yeah, I think I'm good. Yeah, definitely check out, Incident Intelligence. If you sign up for New Relic today, there's a free tier. Just go in, play, and love your feedback.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I love the fact that we can now say like, hey, you can go do this with a free account. Like, again, you want to have a little throughput. You want to make sure it's something that's getting hit with some regularity. But yeah, you can absolutely get that kind of information.